Coming up on today's show, we're going to talk about the latest Disney news and rumors. That's today on Traveling with the Mouse. Welcome, everyone, to Traveling with the Mouse. This is episode 419, one away from 420. And I am your host today. I am Jason. And I am joined, as always, by my esteemed co-host. First, we have Adam.
Ooh, what's up, everybody?
How are you doing tonight, Adam?
I'm a little raspy tonight for some reason.
Oh, sound a little raspy.
It's my nighttime voice.
Are you gonna sing a little ditty for us with that raspy voice?
Maybe. We'll see.
Sounds nice.
We'll see how the night goes.
And we have John.
You know, the Oogie Boogie Bash is doing really well.
Is it?
Yeah. I was just watching a video of it. I actually want to go and see this.
Sounds like a Chapek lover.
Yeah. It sounds like you have a lot in common with your favorite Disney CEO, former CEO, Bob Chapek.
Robert Chapek.
Anyone who has listened to this show knows good and well who my favorite CEO is. I'm pretty sure.
Card Walker.
He wasn't too bad from what we saw.
Yeah, we know.
Well, we're picking on John just a little bit. In our little group chat throughout the week, John made some bold claims stating that, maybe Chapek wasn't so bad after all. And
some bold claims. Is that what he said exactly? Let's go back and let's review the
paraphrasing, maybe, but that's what I took away from it. I mean, if I wanted to paraphrase more, I'd almost say that you thought he did a great job, and that Iger is no good.
Yeah, you definitely don't like Iger. That's for sure.
I think Iger's a phony.
Ooh.
I think he's good at how he delivers things, you know what I mean? Like he speaks well.
Well, that's part of being a CEO.
Yeah, but the substance is still, it's deceitful.
You think he's a wolf in sheep's clothing?
Something like that.
So tell me, John, do you have a picture of Chapek in your room that you salute to every morning?
You just had to go there. I gotta say, this is like when someone criticizes a Democrat, they assume they're Republican and vice versa. This is not what I have here whatsoever.
Yeah. Well, I just know
I can think they suck equally.
Sure.
All right. Well, yeah, we bring this story up in part because the big news of the week is a very long article coming out on CNBC titled Disney's Wildest Ride, Iger, Chapek, and the Making of an Epic Succession Mess.
Yeah.
And the mess continues.
I did read it. There were some articles that came out with some of the highlights, but man, was this a wild ride. And it's almost as we expected. There was a lot of tension going on behind the scenes, and Iger regretted picking Chapek as early as only a few weeks after the announcement.
When you just said wild ride, they took away Mr. Toad in Magic Kingdom. Maybe they should recreate one and call it something like the Bob's Wild Ride or something like that.
Well, yeah, it would be the Bob's for sure. I want to find I think he called himself Big Bob and the other one Little Bob. That was Bob Iger.
Big Bob and Little Bob.
To make sure that people knew who was the boss still.
Well, okay, really quick though. He regretted this decision after the fact. Every Disney fan was like, this is a horrible idea, way before that even happened.
The key thing was that so in the article, let's see if we can summarize a little bit of it.
Yeah.
Obviously, Tom Staggs and others were on the short list at one point. But, Chapek, for whether it's a timing or whatnot, had a lot of operational success throughout his career. Driving up revenues, reducing operating costs, and just overall performing.
Making things
worse. Yes. Apparently, I mean, the big thing that impressed Iger the most was apparently the launch of Shanghai Disneyland.
Even though it went way over budget?
Well, apparently, once he put Chapek on it, Chapek was able to cut down and get some of the
I see.
budget overruns under cost and actually get it to open faster. So he was like,
Okay.
"Oh, okay." So I put Chapek over here, and he got this done, right? And there was a point where Chapek was going to have a longer, interview to be CEO, but then after seeing some of this and deciding, you know what, we don't need to fully interview this guy. Chapek and I think it was Christine McCarthy or maybe Susan Arnold, whoever it was, just sat down with him and said, you know what, you've got the job, and let him know. And then they said on the news for 6 weeks. So they decided in January of 2020 that he was going to step down. And so almost immediately after stepping down, Iger thought he had someone that, had leadership skills. And he also thought he had someone that was going to be kind of like what Eisner wanted to do when he wanted Iger to be CEO and Eisner was going to be executive chairman, where he could still have creative control and he could groom Chapek on the job.
No,
So
that wasn't.
Yeah, that was not even close to the.
Right, we could have told Iger that wasn't going to happen.
Adam was just talking about the fans' perspective, though. The fans' perspective was all about, once again, whenever he made when he made a presentation was the main thing, right?
He had the personality of a brick wall.
It had to do with his inability to deliver things effectively. That was the main thing people saw. So all this other stuff that obviously Iger saw kind of makes sense because he wasn't even paying attention to that part, obviously.
Well, it turns out before offering him the job of CEO, Iger did not go and talk to any of Chapek's direct reports to find out about his management style or any of that.
And this is for a guy who supposedly prides himself on managing people well. I'm just saying.
Well, for having high emotional intelligence and things like that. So shortly after this, of course, COVID becomes a big thing, right?
Right. Yeah.
Okay. So we get there where Iger is he says, I'll handle the creative endeavors. You'll sort of do the operational stuff. That's cool. And then whenever he took over, I think I mentioned that Big Bob, Little Bob. And so then what happened is shortly after this, it was on, March 10th, 2020, 2 weeks after the handoff. This is coming from the story. Chapek, Iger, and Chief Financial Officer Christine McCarthy and a small handful of other Disney executives flew from Los Angeles to Raleigh, North Carolina for Disney's annual meeting. At the front of the plane, Iger and Chapek were going over logistics and fretting about coronavirus. Iger caught Chapek off guard with some news. Chapek, not Iger, would lead the question and answer portion of the meeting, an annual ritual Iger called Stump the CEO. During his 27 years at the company, Chapek had only attended one annual meeting as a guest in the audience. Since Chapek's background at Disney had been in parks, consumer products, and distribution, he knew little about the inner workings of ABC, ESPN, or the movie studio. He'd been given a large binder of background material by the investor relations team, but now he had to be ready to answer questions on any topic, which could range from Disney's stance on the environment to the future of ABC News.
Totally set him up for success.
Correct. After a couple of hours of general preparation, Chapek retreated to a private area in the back of the plane and closed the door to study. Iger was perplexed and expressed his confusion to McCarthy. He assumed the men would run through possible questions and answers throughout the flight. Iger walked to the back of the plane to see if Chapek needed help preparing. Isn't it all in here, Chapek asked, holding up the binder, according to a person on the plane. The basics, yes, but not the nuances, Iger replied. Chapek, who prefers to learn by reading and memorizing material and thought he'd already spent the first hour or two prepping with Iger, said he'd rather stay in the back and study. The first question Chapek would receive was whether he thought there was bias within ABC News, a topic about which he knew little but had prepared for on the plane, according to people familiar with the matter. Iger would later relay this fleeting exchange to friends as one of the first moments it occurred to him that he may have made a mistake. He thought he was handing off the company to a collaborative leader who would work with him side by side for the next 22 months. Iger began to worry about whether Chapek had plans of his own.
Okay, I'm sorry, but whose fault does that sound like that is? I'm just saying.
Iger should have not handed this off and then been like, hey, now let's train you to be CEO.
That's
Oh,
like
boy.
that's like throwing someone to the lions. I mean,
Yeah. Baptism by fire, as they say.
and I'm not saying though that Chapek's handling of that was the best situation either, but he was just been handed this information, and there's no telling how someone's going to react. How, I mean, I don't even know how I would react. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah, it shouldn't have been handled that way. It should have been like, hey, you're the top candidate for CEO, so let's shadow me for the next year and see if you have what it takes or whatever.
See, and there's something about this that kind of puzzles me a little bit, is they chose him based on his experience, yet this is the first time he's ever been exposed to anything like this, and you're planning on handing it over to him?
Well, he already had it.
Well, that's what I'm
It's
saying.
Crazy.
But you get where I'm going with that,
Yeah,
right?
that
You would
makes
think
me
that's
very
something you would
nervous.
have covered before now.
Yeah, before
Just,
2 weeks into
that's
the
just the way
job.
I see it. I mean, am I wrong?
No, I mean, I think that
No,
Iger thought he was still running the company, and Chapek was going to learn from him. But Chapek was like, well, I'm CEO, so I get to run the company, right?
right.
Basically,
exactly.
Iger was thinking he was going to run it from behind the scenes without having
Yeah.
to take the bullets.
Well, what Jason said earlier in the article was, Iger was thinking this is going to be a Frank Wells, Eisner situation where we co-run the company for a while.
See, that's the difference, though. Frank Wells was never the face of the company. Michael Eisner was from day one.
Yeah.
You see what I'm saying?
Yeah, it was kind of the
It's just-
opposite.
it's
Like,
not the same
Well,
thing.
Eisner also proposed to do the same thing with Iger, but he had already lost face with the board. So
Yeah.
they kicked Eisner to the curb, and that was one of the comparisons. So,
Yeah, but that was all engineered by Roy Jr.
yep.
He spearheaded that.
yeah.
So the next thing, now they go and they have their first disagreement. And this is right after the COVID-19 pandemic, which, by the way, on that flight coming back, there was another argument because they started coronavirus fears were billowing up. Gavin Newsom wanted to decide whether or not we needed to shut down Disneyland. And then at some point, McCarthy wanted to do the CEO CFO meeting with Chapek, and they were working on it when Iger snapped and said it was disrespectful to conduct this meeting right in front of him. He complained curtly, according to a person familiar with the exchange. And this was rare for Iger to show Chapek a side of him that wasn't, quote, Disney nice, the term many executives use for a corporate culture that emphasizes kind and respectful interactions.
Wow.
No, I have no doubt that he's not like that all the time. Don't get me wrong. It's probably the first time they'd been shown there.
Which I think later in the article, the commentary at the very end from the CNBC author was like, it seems like Disney nice is what's caused a lot of the problems, is that eventually we're going to get to the point where Iger's like, well, Chapek's running the company. And Chapek's like, well, yeah, Iger wants to run it. And so like they were just, nobody
took the reins.
Nobody was running the company.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Nobody like fully took control. They just sort of hesitated back and forth.
So now they close down. Chapek immediately wanted to furlough 100,000 employees. Cheap bastard. Sorry.
Yes, he is.
Yeah.
No. But I mean, that's a total Chapek move, you would think, right?
Chapek
Like,
was,
let's just get rid of all our stupid employees. We don't need them.
Yeah.
We'll hire back 100,000 people when we reopen.
Chapek was 64 when he took this.
Yeah, he's kind of old. He's older than I expected, too.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking. I didn't think he was that old.
Yeah.
Yeah. So he wanted to furlough, but Iger called Nancy Pelosi and Chuck Schumer and said that they only needed 10 days for the bill to pass for coronavirus relief. And so he said he overruled Chapek and said we're not going to furlough employees until they have something from the government to cover them, and waited until April to furlough them so that they had government relief to cover
at least care a little bit about your cast members.
Right.
Chapek.
Exactly.
Yeah, that's it. Anyway.
And so then later in a story about the pandemic's disasters on Disney and the New York Times, it said after a few weeks of letting Mr. Chapek take charge, Iger had effectively returned to running the company. And Iger did not deny this. He said a crisis of this magnitude and its impact on Disney would necessarily result in my actively helping Bob and the company contend with it, particularly since I ran the company for 15 years.
Yeah.
Chapek was mad. He called Iger and said he didn't need a savior. dropping a carefully placed expletive or two, according with people of knowledge of the call. It was the first time in more than 20 years that Chapek and Iger had a major argument. Iger would tell
Interesting.
people no colleague had ever spoken to him like that before in his life.
That's funny.
This is how ultimately Chapek got a seat on the board, because he was like, I need this seat on the board and you guys are working against me. So that happened. And then now Iger's going around, grumbling, right? And Chapek's doing his thing. And then we go on to June, right?
Wow.
There's a board meeting. Disney directors asked Iger, but not Chapek, to stay on the call for a customary executive session. The board was not as much into Chapek, and Chapek wasn't. And so Iger told the board, Chapek and him weren't getting along. Chapek wasn't exhibiting proper leadership qualities, and he believed Chapek should be working more closely with them. So now the board is aware, and they never forced him to do private mediation or anything like that.
Yeah.
So 4 months later, the managed succession is up in flames.
Yeah, it just shows you how bad it was, and the ripple effect is still going on. And all that.
You're saying this is after 4 months.
Yeah.
After 4 months,
That's crazy.
So here's a good question. Why does it take 3 years total?
Well, they had already signed Chapek to a contract, right?
Yeah, he agreed to how long?
Within the 4 months, they'd already signed him to a contract, a long-term contract?
Mm-hmm.
When he first, it was 2 years, and then they extended it 4 more or something before they ultimately came in this year or last year.
Mm-hmm.
Something like that. I forgot the exact.
But then on the heels of this is when Chapek starts reorganizing the company, right, to get around streaming and redesigning how they're going to do stuff, hiring a bunch of people that weren't exactly, I would guess, Hollywood types that were rubbing a lot of people the wrong way. Whereas Iger was able to glad hand with the celebrities and have a good time. He was hiring very businessy stuff. Chapek had a series of meetings with Iger to discuss this restructure, including a conversation in Iger's Brentwood house and walks around the neighborhood. Despite the unaddressed tensions between the two, the conversations were cordial, according to people familiar with their interactions. Iger did not try to stop his plan, but he also did not give his full endorsement. And then Kareem Daniel, who, remember, Iger fired almost immediately, was hired on and was one of the biggest, I would say, flashpoints from the Chapek era, because he basically rubbed everybody the wrong way.
So what I get out of that is Iger's really not sure that this is a bad move, so he just kind of doesn't really say anything one way or the other and just kind of wait and see. That's what I get out of that. But
yeah, now Chapek brings in Daniel, and he was a lot of people made fun of the fact that he did not have experience in the entertainment world. He had to have people, his communications team, help him navigate the red carpet. He would have to get documents to act during events, complete with talking points for impromptu conversations with celebrities, press, or producers on carpet. So, unlike Iger, who can do this effortlessly, this guy, was like a little more robotic, he was not known. Yeah, Kareem Daniel, who he hired to run the media and entertainment distribution division. Remember that reorg that he did, and put this guy in charge of everything that was picked, right?
Yeah.
So now all the executives that lost power were complaining to Iger, who told them he didn't agree with the reorganization, but there was little he could do. So now it's late 2020 and going into 2021. Everybody's starting to feel a little bit worse off. And most just tried to ignore it and do what they were told. I guess now at this point, end of 2020, Disney World had reopened, right?
Yeah. It was very limited, but yes, it was open.
Okay.
For 5 months at that point, whatever.
And if you want to know why it took so long, John, despite all of this, the share price in the first half of 2021 was going way up.
That's
right?
true. It did go up.
Oh, I know. Remember, I was bullish on them.
Yeah. During a June board meeting in Hawaii at Disney's Aulani Resort, members heaped praise on Chapek, according to people familiar with the proceedings. This time, instead of asking Iger to stick around at the end for a private session, they asked Chapek. Small gesture, but one Chapek interpreted as the board viewing him as the true leader of the company, according to people familiar with his mindset at the time. He was feeling more comfortable on the job and was feeling great.
As far as the stock goes, you got to remember at this point in time, Disney Plus had launched in November. It was carrying some momentum as it was. The whole world shuts down. People are going to be at home.
Yeah, everybody was watching
Disney Plus they rode the backs of Disney Plus during this time period. It actually helped keep the stock price up, truthfully.
They grew a lot. Yeah, Disney Plus was growing like crazy.
Mandalorian was a big hit. I mean, there was a lot of positive energy surrounding Disney Plus. More so than there is currently.
Yeah.
Correct.
But yeah.
I mean, right now, streaming services are a mess. Nobody's profitable. And I've found less and less. I don't really watch Disney Plus nearly as much as I used to, only for specific things. Yeah. If I was to pick one that I think has high quality stuff, like if I'm going to log on and just be like if you go to Netflix, for instance, you log on and there's always something new, but 99% of it is absolute garbage. Yeah. Right? Like it's just.
There's not. I don't watch Netflix, but.
What's funny is Netflix, started out with the whole mailing DVDs, and it was about movies per se.
Right.
I think the strength of their streaming service right now is their original material. That's the thing.
Even that, a lot of their original material is just absolute garbage. Like I've watched a lot of mindless.
I agree
crap.
with you. Yeah, I agree with you. Wes, I agree with you, but it's popular. Is my point.
Right. What I found is like on Netflix, though, there's a lot of really popular shows that are a little bit old, but not too old, that I haven't seen. Like right now, I'm watching Suits, which is the one that Meghan Markle's in.
Yeah,
right?
That one's blown up ever since it quit. As soon as it.
Yeah, and it's actually a good series. I think it was on Showtime or Stars or something when it first.
No, it was on USA.
Yeah, USA.
I remember it way back in the day when it debuted because I watched it a little bit when it debuted. It debuted a long time ago.
Anyways, it's pretty good.
Yeah,
I'm in season 1. I'm enjoying it, but like Netflix is good for that. I like some of the comedy stuff, but like the one that has like the high quality, I think Apple. I see a new series on Apple. I try it out. They're always good, but
I wouldn't know.
Ted Lasso, so on.
Well, I recently watched the new Idris Elba series. It was like the hijack or whatever. The plane gets hijacked, and he has to negotiate how to get them home without dying. Okay, so Chapek's at the top. It's June 2021. It's the peak of his tenure, and then Disney decides to launch Black Widow, a Marvel movie starring Scarlett Johansson, for a premium additional price on Disney Plus and in theaters on the same day, July 9th, 2021. However, as the article says, there was one hitch. Johansson's contract stipulated that her compensation was based on an exclusive theatrical release for up to 4 months. But it was negotiated before COVID.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Okay. So her CAA partner and her agent, whatever, later said she thought Iger could take care of this in an instant if he had some conversations because he was, well liked and all of these things. Chapek viewed Johansson's contract as a creative issue and therefore Iger's territory. Iger had a long relationship with Lord and knew Johansson. This was his arena. Iger, however, wasn't involved in any of the conversations with Lord, who thought Iger would have quickly resolved the situation given the value he had historically placed on creative relationships. What Iger said is, if Chapek wanted to be CEO, he should be CEO. To Iger, this was a clear business matter, a contract dispute, and not a creative endeavor, according to people familiar with his thinking. And by this time, they were barely speaking to each other.
So, in other words, kind of like John's saying, let's see him handle this and flop with it.
So now they decide to sue. Johansson decides to sue. And so now all of a sudden there's a virtual meeting attended by about 20 executives, including Iger and Chapek. Iger did not speak, but felt the meeting was amateur hour and a meeting run by children with far too many people weighing in on how the company would respond.
Why is he there?
Well, he's, executive chairman of the company.
But he's but I know, I get it. But I mean, why would he be there and just let it play out? I don't understand.
Well, just like you're saying, just so Chapek would fail eventually.
Well, see, that's just it, though. I get that part, but again, we're talking about if you truly believe that this is leading to irreparable damage, why are you allowing it to continue?
Yeah.
You have somewhat of a position of power. You never gave it fully up. You're chairman of the board. I mean,
Good
I don't
question. Yeah, why would he sit back
know.
and just let it happen?
Maybe my viewpoint, I don't understand it all personally. That's all I can say. But it just seems like something could have been done sooner. I'm just saying.
Interesting.
I know we're going deep in this, but this has been a hot topic of this podcast, and so we're going to really just go through this sort of whole story.
Yeah,
and
no,
relive it
by
all.
all means, it's interesting.
Yes. Okay, so
Fascinating.
now they release a public statement that says that Johansson had a callous disregard for the horrific and prolonged global effects of the COVID-19 pandemic and revealed her $20 million salary for the film.
Oof, not a good move.
Right. Now, later it says both Iger and Chapek disagreed with the tone of the statement, according to people familiar with the pattern, but neither one stopped its release because each believed the other should be in charge.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's
So-
just...
I will say this: the release being on Disney Plus, everything had changed. Obviously, at that point, was it even being shown? Was there even that many theaters shown? Like that many theaters open when it was released?
I mean, this is 2021, so yes, stuff had reopened.
Okay,
Right? Nobody was going. Right.
Yeah.
But
right. I was going to say theaters didn't really recover until like just recently, actually. Right.
Just recently, but
this year
remember
more
stuff
so.
opened. Not like I think it was like January 2021. We live in Georgia. We were one of the first states that our governor was like, "Yeah, let's open it all up." Right? Like, just
but
let's
not
do
everybody wanted to go. Most people still didn't want to go.
Right.
I mean, my desire to go had already waned before this took place, truthfully. But
Now, I have a friend of mine, by the way, since we're talking about this. I know COVID is kind of spiking in, but they have a friend of theirs. They were going to go, they're going on a trip somewhere. They have a long time old friend there. They're like, hey, I'm going to be in town. Do you want to meet up? And the person was being kind of weird because they're still entirely isolated, not going to school, not eating out. Yeah, they're like still isolating as if it's 2020. And it's 2023.
Wow. Yeah. Man, you got to keep on living, man. LIVIN.
Well, given everything that we have learned since then, though, I mean, why?
I mean, I don't, unless you're like majorly immunocompromised in some way.
Yeah. You'll be fine after a couple days.
Okay, so here we are. They both disagreed, but let it go out anyway. Now Iger calls Chapek and says that he needs to issue an apology. Chapek refused, though. Iger never even considered apologizing. So Hollywood talent and agents largely blamed Chapek for the statement. Chapek suspected Mucha, who was this other person in the executives, I didn't really talk about this, was pushing this narrative to the press. To defend himself, Chapek solicited other members of the communications team to help him call reporters without informing Mucha. Disney settled the lawsuit in October 2021.
Yikes.
So that was a huge mess.
Yeah.
And they both pointed at each other. Now, November comes along. Iger decided to throw himself a goodbye party at his Brentwood house.
Right.
He was finally leaving Disney. He invited about 70 guests, including Steven Spielberg, Al Michaels, David Muir, Robin Roberts, Michael Strahan, and many, many former and present Disney leaders. Iger reluctantly invited Chapek. When he found out Chapek had a speaking engagement at Walt Disney World set for that day, he was relieved, according to people familiar. He did not want Chapek to attend, and the feeling was mutual. Chapek's first impulse was to decline, but he knew it would look terrible if he didn't attend, so he canceled his plans in Orlando, which was going to be that, what was it, the Parks panel or whatever?
Right, was it the Destination D23 event back then?
Yeah, I was thinking, I think it's more like Iger chose that date on purpose, but continue.
Probably. It's just a series of unfortunate events. It's not really like he was necessarily intentionally trying to set him up to fail, but
it's lemony snickets.
It's just all these little, anyway.
Okay, so at the party, the tension between the two was palpable. Iger sat next to Spielberg and Chapek sat farther away at the opposite table, visibly miserable.
Yeah.
It did not escape the attendees that Iger thanked dozens of people in his speech, but not Chapek.
Yeah.
It was humiliating, but Chapek told friends he felt relieved the tension was out in the open. But now Iger was gone, so Chapek could finally run Disney his way. He finally moved into Iger's larger office, the thing that Iger really didn't want to give up, the one with the private bathroom. But he never...
Is that the reason they keep focusing on that point about the shower? Is that the
apparently there was that article that Iger said he lived for the 2 shower days. where he took a shower at home and then another one at the office before going out to the red carpet or whatever.
Dude, okay.
That's hilarious. Hey, as someone, the bathroom person on this show, like, I kind of understand that.
Now you want to go see that bathroom, don't you?
Yeah,
I'm sure.
like, that's got to be one of the best. For sure.
Apparently running Disney is a dirty job.
Adam's aiming to be CEO of Disney just so he can use that bathroom.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's
nice.
So he finally moved in. Now he takes over. He started all sorts of changes, combining government relations with media communications. That moves out some of Iger's people. Like, he starts to get rid of some of the Iger loyalists, right?
See, it's moves like that, though, that are just totally ego. You know what I mean? It's like he's like, I feel like I have to change things for the sake of making a point.
I have to purge the Igerness out of the company.
Right. Yeah. But anyway, continue.
He fired Rice, the well-respected head of TV, in June, telling him he wasn't a cultural fit because he had come to Disney 3 years early via the acquisition of Fox. So to combat the outflow of institutional knowledge, Chapek worked overtime to make sure he retained McCarthy because McCarthy was a master of internal politics and had close ties to the board. Chapek jokingly offered McCarthy a lifetime contract after he found out she had bought a house in Montana, a sign she was thinking about retiring. So now his inner circle was just a handful of senior executives. He did not rely on most of the existing leadership because they had a lot of ties to Iger.
Wow.
It's interesting that he wanted to keep her, and she kind of engineered his exit, so to speak.
Well, it's hours later. You'll hear later how it gets it. Yeah, he changes his mind.
Very Shakespearean.
Yeah, in a way, right.
So he primarily relied on Kareem Daniel, Bachner, who I don't know, but was later replaced by Claire Lee, Chief Human Resources Officer Paul Richardson, McCarthy, and the new head of parks, Josh DeMauro.
Who?
Chapek thought he had an ally in Susan Arnold as well, who was the new board chair. Okay, so a little more than a month into Chapek's tenure without Iger at the company, so now he's finally got the reins and he feels he can take it on the way he wants, right?
Yeah.
Florida Governor Ron DeSantis, a Republican, introduced the Parental Rights and Education Act, which critics called the Don't Say Gay bill.
Yeah, this fiasco.
Okay, so Chapek and Morrell were soon fielding media inquiries, and Iger tweeted out, if passed, this bill would put vulnerable young LGBTQ people in jeopardy, he wrote. So Iger had always talked about this kind of stuff. Iger has always had political leanings too. I think he's always kind of thought maybe people had talked about after Disney, maybe he was setting himself up to run for president one day.
He's even talked about it before.
Yeah.
I don't think that's happening now.
Yep. But Chapek wanted to chart a different path. Weeks before DeSantis introduced his legislation, Morrell had outlined a new communication strategy at the board. He wanted Disney to stay out of political skirmishes entirely and signal its values through 3 C's: content, culture, and community, organizations supported by Disney. They thought they'd have months to explain their strategy, but once Iger tweeted, Chapek had to say something. So they decided to put a new into action. They pinned a memo to all staff and proved it by the board. It explained that the company would not take a public stance on the bill. So Susan Arnold, who is the chairman of the board and is openly lesbian, did sign off on the statement, but also told Chapek that Disney should sign the public letter by the Human Rights Campaign that said that companies were generically united in opposing the wave of anti-LGBTQ plus legislation. Chapek wanted to sign the letter, but didn't want to undercut the message of the initial statement. So we all remember the statement. The blowback was swift. Everybody got mad. Disney do better. Disney say gay. All of these things. But Chapek and Morrell were convinced. They said they didn't want to be in a culture war with DeSantis, whom Chapek had a solid relationship with at the time.
Right. Yeah.
And they also were focusing on China, and they didn't want to embrace a policy that would piss off China either.
I think DeSantis smelled blood when an opportunity there with Chapek's kind of weakness so he exploited it.
Well, the way it was handled, I'll say, did not turn out good for either. So when it's all done.
Yeah, not really, although it's going to take years to really for it to fully play out. But
yeah, I mean, DeSantis is a little man-child.
It didn't help him politically like he thought it would. Which is why now he's going like, oh, we've moved on. Like, it's over. Like, we're done with it. Because it didn't really help him.
I can say that initially I did not see, when I read the actual proposal, the bill, I honestly don't understand. I think somebody labeled it "Don't Say Gay." Personally, I mean, I don't understand where they got that from, but whatever. I think that was partially politically motivated as well. However, over time, some of the things that they were trying to enforce with it seemed a bit overreaching.
It was always the intent. We know Ron DeSantis. We know what he stands for. It was always his intent. That's why he passed the bill the way he did.
Well, yeah, you have to code the language in the bill to where it can be misunderstood enough to,
This way is just taken off, and it's just continuing with the most recent, campaign. And it's a race to the bottom in a lot of ways. And DeSantis put a lot into that, right? So now Chapek gets bombarded with furious stuff, and now Chapek says that he regretted putting out the statement if the board refused to back him because Arnold said that he needed to apologize. So he walked back his statement a few days later at the annual meeting and said he would stand with it, which led to everything we talk about now, and we now no longer have the Reedy Creek district and all of this stuff, and where all of this led. We've talked about this in great extent.
Yeah, we have.
Yeah. So now Chapek's reputation with the company has been severely damaged, right?
Yeah.
Now, it was hardly a great thing before he gets his contract renewal. But once he did have new great things to highlight. First quarter of 2022, Park's experiences and products saw revenues more than double over the year-over-year. So there we go. He wins.
Of course. Genie Plus and all the other price hikes they did.
Yep.
$9 spring rolls.
What do you think, John? Is this where you started to love him again? I don't see where any of that's been walked back. So I don't think that had anything to do with just him.
Well, Iger's gone.
Iger may be gone, but Iger is not gone. You know what I'm saying? All this stuff still sounds like stuff that took place during his reign, in my opinion.
Well, I mean, Iger could have walked it back by now, but I guess it's making money. You're not going to just be like, well, let's just cut all that revenue.
Yeah, the last thing he can do is reduce revenue, right?
Well, I was going to say, because he got Chapek to do the dirty work. That's what I'm saying all along.
I mean, I don't feel like
Iger when I say these
that
things,
cunning, to be honest. Doesn't sound like it.
Well, when I say these things, I'm not saying it to defend Chapek. I'm saying it to say that he got him to do the dirty work. They played him as a patsy. They saw his personality. They saw what he was capable of. And they let him ride this thing out as long as they possibly could before bringing him back. He's the emperor. I'm just saying. Anyway, continue.
Continue. Okay, so now it's time for, he has a great quarter, right? Now he comes in with this bold vision. He wants to push Hulu and Disney Plus together, a hard bundle. He decides he wants to invest in the metaverse. So he hires 50 people to do that, which we now know those have all been fired because the metaverse got cut recently. He wanted to consider spinning off or selling ABC and ESPN.
They're still talking about that.
I know, that was a concept that Iger had consistently dismissed, but recently floated again.
Yeah.
And then, when Iger was chairman, Chapek was so reluctant to broach the subject of selling legacy media assets that he'd carefully massage the language in slide presentations to avoid annoying Iger. So he decided he was trying to do all of this stuff. He wanted to try to strike deals with all sorts of different leagues. He was also starting to gain traction with the Hollywood community. He'd brokered peace with Johansson. A lot of people the majority decided he needed more time to implement his own vision and receive a relatively short contract extension until July 2025. The message was, we believe in you as long as you keep delivering results.
This also sounds a lot like the Conan Jay Leno Tonight Show debacle.
You mean where Conan got screwed?
Kind of, yeah. Well, because, they brought him in and it was like, oh, it's so different. Well, you got to give Conan time. And then ultimately they just ripped him out of there.
But Conan, here's the thing. What do they mean by got to give Conan time? Conan went on to have a very successful show on TBS.
Well, I meant like at the Tonight Show, because I think he started slipping in the ratings. Like Letterman started outdoing him in the ratings.
I don't know. I really don't even care. I mean, is late night television even a thing anymore? It's not relevant anymore.
Currently, there's nothing on late night.
It's not relevant. Well, yeah, I mean, obviously right now, but I'm talking about even before then. It's not even relevant really anymore. I mean,
well,
they still
it's
have
relevant.
They still have the shows.
But it's relevant on YouTube at this point. Like most people watch late night shows the next day on YouTube.
They want the cliff notes. That's all they want.
That's what I do. I always watch the next day.
Yeah.
YouTube is really probably the most watched anything right now, to be honest.
Mm-hmm. Right. Globally, I mean, I would just watch the what do you call it? The monologues. That's it.
Yeah.
But anyway, I know this is another sidetrack, but the kids were watching some Mr. Beast videos or whatever, and I was just like, how many people viewed this? And it was like 450 million views. I'm like, oh crap, that's
unbelievable.
Any TV show could ever get these days. 450 million views, and it was less than a year old of a video. I'm like, golly.
If you focus on stuff that grabs kids' attention, you are on a rocket ship to
just
being a millionaire.
The AdSense revenue he made off of that one video. It's insane.
The thing that kind of stinks, though, about their structure currently, though, is that YouTube is the real, like Google's the real winner.
Well, of course, yeah. They take the majority of the revenue.
Oh, they take way more than their fair share now compared to what they used to.
Yeah, of course.
But anyway. And they have people like me because, my kid watches a lot of YouTube. I watch YouTube, so I pay for the premium, so I don't have to watch any ads.
As do I.
So do I. Yeah, we all do.
Well, see, the thing is, for me, the premium version also includes the music.
Yeah.
You really don't even have to. You don't even have to have any other music if you don't want to.
Yeah.
And we will be right back.
Teaching her how to drive. But Dad, why not use Greenlight to help her save for her own car? Mowing lawns and getting paid. She'll go from washing your car to flexing with her own. How? With Greenlight, the money app for families. Together, you can navigate the world of earning, saving, and investing. Because when you teach her to be smart about money, she'll go far. Invest in your best investment. Sign up today at greenlight.com.
This episode is also sponsored by Zencastr. We use Zencastr for traveling with a mouse, and we really enjoy how easy and user-friendly it is. You can record up to 4K video and high-quality audio, and they have backups, so you never have to worry about losing any of your audio. Go to Zencastr.com and use the promo code TWTM, and you'll get 30% off your first month of any Zencastr Pay plan. I want you to have the same easy experience we do for all of our podcasting and content needs. It's time to share your story with Zencastr.
And now back to the show.
It's a great story, though. It's a great story.
It's a fascinating timeline, but it's also very scary because all this happened, and it's just like kind of crash and burn story. But anyway,
okay. Now we're in the summer of 2022. Okay.
Oh boy.
So we're getting closer. So Iger spent the summer of 2022 vacationing. You want to hear how he spent his time?
Yeah, sure.
He was vacationing in the South Pacific on his yacht, working on his second book, and attending the funeral of former Capital Cities ABC CEO Tom Murphy, a longtime mentor, and making some personal investments, taking meetings with venture capital firms and tech startups that want to list him as a survivor, an advisor. And in September, he joined the board of venture capital firm Thrive Capital. Okay. So he was keeping busy and yachting, but Chapek suspected and feared that Iger's heart remained at Disney. And one friend described Iger at that time as bored out of his mind. Okay?
Right. Yeah, I can imagine.
He's how old at this point? Because he's 72
Iger?
now, right?
71.
He's 71. So that was last year. So, and he was still talking to executives, and some of them were urging him to come back to Disney.
Somebody's bored out of their mind at 71. They have an issue, if you ask me. I mean, because I would be happily retired if I was an Iger's.
The guy has been running something for forever, and he's the top dog, right? Like they
Right.
say
Wow.
the best way to
I think they call that an addiction.
Stay busy though. Stay busy, man.
No,
most
staying
people
busy. You
who
can
are
find ways to stay
CEOs of
busy.
giant companies are addicted to that kind of stuff. You know?
Yeah.
Yeah.
They gotta have the constant
He probably
activity.
has he's probably the guy that has like the 4 to 6 hours of sleep, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Okay, so now it's it's the middle of 2022, and during the first half, Disney's stock was down 40% because of the correction. Interest rates go up.
So now we're getting to the
Um,
real reason.
Mm-hmm. So now
Yeah.
Summer, Iger's talking to some new communications heads, Shockey or whatever, wish her luck in her role. She invites him to dinner, and she used to be Obama's former communications director, and they both are friends with the Obamas. Thinking that Chapek may take the meeting the wrong way, Shockey told the board and Chapek about the meal. Chapek was perturbed, and Shockey was supposed to be his communications director, and already she was dining with the enemy.
Interesting.
So now Chapek thinks Iger's plotting a return, right? And now it's the run up to the fourth quarter fiscal earnings report, which is when it all goes south.
Yeah.
Are we ready? Now they have their earnings preparation. That's a highly choreographed executive presentation. It's rehearsed ad nauseum. They would agree up on a thing. They would do a Q&A. There's no surprises.
Mm-hmm.
So in late September, Chapek and McCarthy prepped the board on what to expect for the upcoming November 2022 quarter. But this time, McCarthy began going off script. Not only did she reference numbers and forecasts the two executives hadn't discussed, she bluntly told the board the quarter's financials were on pace to be very bad, according to people familiar with what was said at the meeting. McCarthy told the board that Disney's earnings would fall dramatically short of Wall Street's consistent estimate of 55 cents per share. Quarterly revenue would be more than $1 billion lower than projected, and the quarter would be the company's biggest miss relative to Wall Street consensus estimates in a decade.
Huh.
She attributed this grim outlook in part to the company's failure to alter its streaming strategy after the industry's revaluation triggered by Netflix's first quarter lack of growth, and Disney had to prioritize profitability. She thought Daniel was overhiring, and Chapek's restructure had created duplications that needed to be addressed by layoffs.
Wow.
Chapek was blindsided and had no idea. He asked how this could happen, and then Chapek was telling people that if it's anything, McCarthy had poor financial management. So now they're falling out, right?
Yeah.
She was the CFO. Either she wasn't sharing the numbers or hadn't grasped how bad it would be. Chapek shared his frustration with his colleagues, but did not express her with her directly, other than telling her she'd unnecessarily upset the board. Wow. And Chapek didn't believe the results were as dire as McCarthy was painting them to be. He's like, Disney Plus is still adding customers, right? As long as it was on pace to meet all of its subscribers, it was going to be great, right? It was on pace to meet 200 by the end of 2024.
Right.
And he says, Kareem Daniel says, we're killing it, right?
Yeah.
She had hoped that she would jar him into realizing that his rosy outlook was not based in reality and wasn't actually there. Okay?
This was, when was this?
November. So this is the November earnings call.
Yeah.
2022.
Last year, yeah. The one that ultimately led to it, him being ousted.
Mm-hmm. In November of 2022, does it give the specific date?
I don't.
Okay.
We're getting close to the earnings call. So the earnings call has not yet happened. They have just told the board it's going to suck majorly.
Yeah.
And Chapek's not accepting it. Okay. So now remember that management retreat in Orlando? Remember us talking about that on the show? Yeah. So they all go down to Orlando, and this is a few weeks before the earnings call. And so they go down there, and a bunch of people are getting there to try to figure out a strategy. General Counsel Horacio Gutierrez told colleagues they were entitled to their own opinions, but not their own facts. He forced McCarthy, Daniel, Shockey, direct a bunch of people into a meeting for the bulk of the retreat, and they were all holed up in a conference room. They missed most of the scheduled fun, such as interacting with the animals at Animal Kingdom and getting to ride new theme park attractions without the lines. Chapek had phased out the mandatory athletic activity from the Iger area. Okay? So they're all freaking out. They're locked in a conference room during this retreat. Chapek, however, attended only a few minutes of the first strategy session. He spent most of his time at the retreat participating in activities that would showcase his personable side to employees. By this time, Chapek had grown a
Nice.
beard, which colleagues told him he should keep because it humanized him. When several of the executives locked in the conference room found out Chapek was having fun, including petting a hippopotamus, their collective frustration with him grew, according to people familiar with the matter.
Hilarious. He's so personable.
Yes.
He pet a
He had that
hippopotamus. And he grew a beard.
Okay,
Oh
so
my
they
God.
come out of this meeting and they tell him this quarter results are going to be devastating. And so Chapek began referring to Shockey, Quadrani, and McCarthy as the Mean Girls, a reference to the Lindsay Lohan movie,
Yeah.
because they thought they were ganging up on him. And anybody that took a gloomy view of Disney's prospects, he referred to as the Eeyores. Okay.
Right. Yeah. How original.
Okay, so it's day of earnings call. The finance team told Chapek to deliver a sober message acknowledging the streaming division's net operating losses were more than double, while emphasizing Disney was playing a long game and would ultimately emerge stronger. But he did not.
Yeah, this is his nail because of how he delivers.
Yeah.
As Jim Cramer said.
Yep.
Oh,
he
yeah,
was
right.
appalled
I
at
remember
how
that.
cavalier Chapek seemed about the state of the business, is what McCarthy was. She was particularly annoyed that instead of frankly addressing the results, Chapek waxed on about how the promising ticket sales for Disneyland's Oogie Boogie Bash Halloween event were going.
Yeah.
Although
That's going to save the company.
I was just watching that tonight. That is an awesome event.
I know, you're a Chapek apologist. You love the Oogie Boogie Bash.
Yeah.
Right.
Give
Yeah, that
another
is-
salute, John.
Because I
Yeah.
think it's because it looks good. I think I'm a Chapek apologist. Okay.
Oh. Yeah.
Okay. The following days were not kind, so Disney's share price drops immediately 13%. An activist hedge fund, Trian Partners, took an $800 million stake in Disney, worrying board members that he may try to take, Nelson Peltz were trying to take a board seat and oust current directors. And then privately, another board member said he was making a mistake releasing an animated movie, Strange World, which featured an openly gay character. This person was working for Donald Trump and said the movie was too polarizing and not up to Disney's quality standards. But Chapek and other studio executives knew they had to release the movie. The last thing Disney needed to do was anger the LGBT community again. So
Well,
they
it did not
released
do
it, and
well.
it was a giant flop and lost $200 million. But they also didn't advertise it at all.
Yeah, I hadn't heard anything about this movie until I was at Hollywood Studios and they had like a preview of it. And that was the
Mhm.
only time I'd ever heard of it. I'm like, what is this movie? Never heard of it. So they didn't market it at all.
I feel as though, like, say, for instance, The Little Mermaid, it did better at the end of its run in the theater. Is it out of theaters already?
Yeah, it's on Disney Plus, right?
But my point is being that once it's on Disney Plus, it's going to have more eyes on it, right? And I feel like it's going to gain more traction. That didn't happen really with Strange World. I know it happened that way with Encanto. Encanto, it gained so much traction on Disney Plus that they re-released it in theaters because of its original poor showing in theaters. So, I mean, sometimes people just aren't willing to go pay to see something. I mean, that's the thing that frustrates me, because that's the main reason why they do all these sequels, because they know it's going to attract a crowd to the theater, whether
Yeah,
it's
people
whether it's
know
any
it.
good or not. Just like I mentioned it the other night, Pirates. The original is by far the best overall film, right? But it's not the highest grossing film.
Right.
I mean, it's ridiculous.
Well, I think now there's so much content out there, it's easier to break through the noise with something people already know. Whereas introducing something brand new, like, hey, here's a movie.
But I
called
mean,
Strange
come
World.
on. Barbenheimer, both of them.
Well, yeah. They marketed the heck out of that, though. They built
Yeah.
so much hype. Like, it was months
Somebody-
before the movie came out.
Hey.
I was hearing about Oppenheimer like last year.
And
Yeah.
Barbie was like buzzing the whole time. Like,
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, Barbie actually.
Yeah, I'm gonna
Yeah,
find
caught on
find it hard for me to care
culturally.
about Barbie.
Barbie's great. I still want to see it. I haven't seen it
You
yet,
have
but I heard it's a
daughters,
great
so-
movie.
You know, amidst all this that we're just talking about, though, I was just looking, and in the last 5 years, the Disney stock peaked under Chapek.
Yeah,
On
back-
March the 8th in 2021, it was 197.16 was the highest point.
Oof. It's gone down a lot since then.
Yeah.
I bought some more today. I bought some more Disney stock today. I still believe.
I'm not to that point
I
at the
mean, it's
moment.
got to come back up after,
Eventually.
Of course,
after Apple buys them.
I've taken the position that I only invest in things that pay dividends currently, so Disney is not one of those.
They'll eventually pay dividends. Okay, so we're getting close to the end of Chapek, right? Chapek's not listening to anybody. So in a highly unusual move, board members set up discussions with Disney division heads who rarely speak to directors outside formal meetings. So Shockey, McCarthy, Gutierrez, Walden, Bergman, and DeMauro all told either Arnold, Mark Parker, or the entire board they no longer supported Chapek as CEO.
Well, it's not too hard to get that consensus. You know, when they can see what direction it's going, it's pretty easy to get it unanimous.
Okay. So on November 12th, this is like, that was like November 23rd. This is back up just a couple weeks before this. Walden and Bergman, lived near Iger. They take a walk and said that they told Arnold they were concerned. They asked Iger, is he interested in returning? Maybe if they was offered. Iger said he'd consider it, but he didn't tell his wife. He just sort of sat on it. Okay, now November 19th comes around. So Walden plans another walk with Iger for 3 p.m. Shortly before their scheduled walk stroll, Walden called to tell Iger she'd never had any intention of taking that walk. She had made the appointment to ensure he'd be available for a call from Arnold, who formally asked him to return. So Iger decided, yep, I'll take it. And then they fired Chapek, who wasn't even allowed to send a goodbye email. Less than 3 years after he gave up his job, Iger was once again the CEO of Disney. Wow. Around Christmas, Shockey, Quadrani, and McCarthy received presents from a colleague, pink sweaters, an homage to their Mean Girl history.
Wait, you're saying Chapek sent them?
It said a colleague, so I don't know who sent it to them.
Okay.
Interesting. The rest of the article is a little bit more about what John wants us to talk about, which is how Iger has come back and is having a tough time. He's had to lay off a bunch of people. The stock's doing poorly. They're doing terribly at releasing films that people...
The stuff I want you to talk about.
Yes.
Reality, I'm sorry.
Yes. And then, they're struggling with Disney Plus. And then it's, talking about where did all this go down and how are they going to find a new Disney CEO and all of that. So I think that's good enough for now on that article. Any reactions left after that long ride? I know we talked about that one thing on this show for a full hour, but talk about an end of an era and that whole story we'd speculated on for so long.
It's not good. It's not good.
It's still not good.
Yeah, that's what I'm talking about right now. It's not good. And it's been a long ride off of a short cliff since 2020. It is not good.
I still think the decision that they set him up from the get-go. I mean, how do you not know that he's not capable of doing some of the things that... I mean, just the stuff, the parks panels and stuff that he was allowed to do prior to being named CEO. The way he handled those things. The lack of enthusiasm that would... Or should I say the fake enthusiasm that was expressed. They knew what this guy was about ahead of time. You cannot convince me that they did not put him in this position just because they knew there was a rough road ahead. I am totally convinced that this is a setup.
I don't give him that much credit.
Companies have done this before.
It sounds too much conspiracy. I mean, we just read the whole article. It sounds like there was a lot of, he had a lot of faith, and then it was a series of mishandling. And I also think that the tensions got so much that they were both pointing the finger at each other, and nobody did anything, which caused the whole thing to go off the rails.
Yeah, but how do you not know that he is not ready or capable to handle this based on what he has done prior to this? Yes, he's had good success in the company, but not as the face of the company.
Okay, but why do they need to set Chapek up to fail?
Why wouldn't Iger just stay on?
Yeah.
He dropped off whenever COVID was happening.
But they decided on it in January.
It was still on it. It was on the radar by then.
I don't think it.
Not to the degree that
nobody was thinking it was going to be what it was.
It was called COVID-19. Come on.
But even in March, we were thinking, a couple weeks, we'll be back going by April 1st. Right.
Okay,
I remember that.
So it's all just coincidence.
Well, I think it's just all a series of unfortunate events. Like I said, I don't think they meant to. Because why would they set Chapek up for failure, though? Why?
Let's go to this. He did manage to keep the company profitable, keep the stock price up at least, during his tenure there.
For a short time.
And even the way things were done in 2020, we always just kind of felt like, well, they kind of have to do these things. I didn't have a bad time necessarily when I was able to go. I actually feel more discouraged right now. I mean, there's a lot of things good, but I feel more discouraged now than I did then. Because, I mean, all the stuff we complained about, Chapek did this, Chapek did that. The only thing we've gotten evidence of being undone is paying for parking. That's the only thing I see. I mean,
well, they are going to do some investment. I'm just waiting for them to announce how they're going to invest into the parks. I know we're just getting Journey of Water. That's
right, which is that looks good. I'm actually, I'm high on Journey of Water, truthfully.
Right, I think they have.
High on waters.
Yeah, you're high on water.
High on water.
I mean,
yeah.
To be honest, the parks though aren't the problem for them right now. It's everything else.
Yeah.
The parks is
they're always going to make money, or at least right now, anyway.
Like, I don't even know how much Iger's even focusing on the parks right now. I think he's probably trying to figure out how they're going to make the rest of the business profitable.
Right. The problem is you're going to ignore your cash cow, and it's going to start slipping away because Epic Universe is going to start pulling some of their business away.
Well, this is just one man's opinion, but back during the Renaissance, they created stories. That was the main focus of they didn't go back and say, well, we need to make a sequel of this or a sequel of that. When they truly got the Renaissance, there was no sequels. Okay? There was no remakes. There was none of this garbage.
I mean, there were sequels, they just weren't good. There was a second Lion King, and there was a second.
They did them straight to DVD.
Right, they were the DVD market. Yeah.
Right.
Which nowadays they could just put it straight to Disney Plus.
Right, they could, and they still probably will. But my point in that being is you didn't see them put a theatrical release of, oh, we're going to redo Peter Pan, or oh, we're going to redo Cinderella, or oh, we're going to redo all these other things from the past. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
The original was the attraction. It was the money. It was the, I don't know.
Right. But again, I think the landscape is so crowded right now that how do you break through the noise with something new and original? It's hard to do. Name recognition, like Barbie, for example.
That's something that you know is going to make money.
What has made the most money this year? Mario and Barbie, two things that everybody knows.
Well, what did Mario do?
Well, it tapped into nostalgia for sure.
That was
what do you think
part
Barbie
of it.
did? Barbie did the same thing, I'm sure.
It told the story, right? It didn't check boxes.
Well, I mean, it's not.
It's a pretty formulaic movie. I mean,
yeah.
Yeah.
But I'm just saying, name recognition, for one.
Yeah.
It's like everybody knows what those things are. So it's like, oh, I know that. I'll go see it. Versus, something I
well, there's also no fatigue. It's name recognition without fatigue. Like, everybody was gaga for Marvel for a while, but now everybody's like, oh my gosh.
We know it, right? Another Guardians, another whatever,
the Marvel market. The Marvel market has been saturated for a long time. Coming from me, though, I was not the biggest Marvel fan in the first place. Yeah. So,
well, where do they go from here? Like, how does this improve? Because I'm not seeing a whole lot.
I really don't.
Silver lining necessarily.
Well, Elemental was a positive note to me.
Really?
But they need to start making money off of something. That's the problem.
Movie-wise.
Well, I just noticed. Okay, so just recently, this past weekend, right? We watched Moana and we watched Coco.
Uh-huh.
I mean, I keep looking at all these things and I see John Lasseter's name in there. And I'm thinking, man, he was so good at producing these things. Apparently. Do you see what I'm saying? So
you just keep him away from everybody else, but still bring him back.
I don't know. What I'm saying though is I've noticed a difference in the production of Pixar in particular.
Yeah.
Since his exit.
Yeah. That doesn't surprise me.
And Elemental, though, was good. It seemed like it was getting more back to the Pixar roots, so to speak, to a degree. And I think if more people gave it a chance, they would see the same thing, truthfully.
But that's the thing. More people aren't giving anything a chance. They aren't marketing anything properly. the stuff that they do market, they don't get excitement. Like, even though we were excited about Indiana Jones, the only one of us that went and saw was Adam, because he's like
Yeah.
a diehard, right?
Yeah.
Little Mermaid, I did want to see it, but it didn't like push me out to the theaters the same way. Haunted Mansion, people barely even knew that movie was coming out.
Yeah.
How's it done, by the way? I haven't kept up with it.
Oh, terribly. It's
Not
awful.
great.
Yeah.
I think Jason and I really saw it because we know somebody who worked on it. I think that's kind of one of the main reasons why we went to see it.
Yeah.
I feel like this is one of those things similar to Moana, because I don't know why they took this trend away, only then I guess they don't want that data out there. But they used to have the trending, remember, on Disney Plus, and Moana
Right.
was frequently up there. They took that totally away because I guess they don't want people to see what's truly trending because it kind of messes with their actual plans. I would find it hard to believe. I bet you when Elemental gets released to Disney Plus, it will have a good bit of viewership. That's all I'm going to say about that. It did better in theaters as time went on, but when it gets released to Disney Plus, there's going to be a lot more eyes on it. I think that's the same way with Little Mermaid, really. I think of the original criticisms were kind of unfair, and if anybody who actually gave it a chance, they would see that it was a good film.
Yeah.
Even the CGI or the effects that people had criticisms about before it was even released, I don't understand that because I don't see that. It looked pretty good to me visually.
But they still didn't advertise it well.
Right.
I don't understand what their strategy is over there. And I know it's going to take Iger some time. It's, he's undoing some of their restructuring, but still, it's not going to get any better next year because they're not going to have anything to release because of this writer's strike. And to be someone who is so pro Hollywood and all this, Iger is like a bad guy too. He's one of the big ones that's keeping the strike going. With, when I was at Dragon Con last weekend, I saw someone dressed up as Mickey Mouse saying, "I hate the writers" as a sign or something like that. Because, Disney is on the side of, we're going to, like, basically Iger wants to not agree that they're going to let AI not take over their jobs.
But what where he's right about is talking about the timing and everything. And again, I've said this before, but we're in an era where people don't care as much because they have things like YouTube, like we just discussed. You see what I'm saying? People don't care because there's.
I'm getting bored with YouTube somewhat. I mean, it's clickbait content. It's, there's some stuff that I can watch that's interesting, but
and this season especially because college football. See, I mean, people just care less about whether or not there's new content.
Well, college football is big where we are. I mean, I watched it somewhere I grew up. I cared more about college basketball up in North Carolina. So,
well, I mean, it's obviously big enough that it carries a lot of weight with, say, this current dispute with Spectrum.
Yeah.
It's made a lot of national news. I just don't think in general, I'm not saying everybody, obviously, but I think in general, the population is not that concerned with the Hollywood strike. I haven't even heard that much about it lately. So.
I mean, I guess where I've been, Dragon Con and others, and some of the stuff I read, I've seen more about it. And, I know some people personally affected that haven't worked for almost a year now,
My point is they're all in a business that's involving entertaining people, right?
Mm-hmm.
If the people don't miss it, you're only hurting yourself.
Well, right now we still have new stuff coming out, right? This is my point.
Yeah.
They still have some new stuff. They can get us through the end of the year, maybe a little bit in the next year. But if this goes on, like even now, stuff's been disrupted. Like there may not be anything good next year.
Yeah, it's going to be a dry year.
Or summer. Like we aren't even going to have a summer blockbuster or anything. There's going to be nothing because there's nothing being produced or I know which movie is it? Is it?
I will say this, it really stings for the theaters because they were just getting traction.
Right, but there are at least a couple of movies that are being made because they had already been fully written. Right? They can't do rewrites on the fly or anything like that. Like they're
going to start digging into the vault in some of those projects that they originally dismissed and put in the can. They're going to start using those.
I think it's an opportunity though for I don't know if one distribution company can cross the line and make a deal. I don't know. I just hope that ends. Yeah, I hope that ends. Not. I don't know. Not like somebody, not a writer, but I like instead of a Disney, like an independent movie production company come to a deal with the unions and say, we'll give you everything you want.
Hasn't this already gone on longer than the one from 09 or 08 or whatever it was?
Or close to it.
Yeah, because back then, you didn't have all these other forms of entertainment too.
Yeah.
Right?
Well,
look, don't get me wrong. Like I said earlier, I have no problem with someone getting what they think they're worth. But what I'm saying is you're in an industry that's very dependent upon people being interested in what you're doing.
Well,
and the longer this goes on, the more it actually hurts your overall profession.
Yeah, I what you're saying is the lack of the content makes people have to go find alternate content on YouTube or wherever.
Well, there's plenty of alternate content in this day and age. That's my point. And a lot of people are already nostalgic for the past as it is. And there's plenty of that to go around. So
I mean, we're not even sponsored by this, but I discovered the whole like free TV, like Pluto and stuff, where I can just watch old stuff for free.
There you go. You were just talking about Suits earlier. I went back and looked. That actually debuted in 2011 and ran to 2019. Yeah. And people are just now talking about it, right? They're probably talking about it now more than they did when it was actually on.
Well, it's like, during COVID, like Tiger King was such a big thing, and it's a terrible, trashy thing, but it's like nobody, like we didn't have anything else going on at that time. So it just happened to be at the right place at the right time.
That was more of like one of those shock jock type things.
Right. But I mean, it's horrible content.
That was never going to last long term.
Right, of course not. But it was the right place at the right time, which is where, some things are filling that void. Something's got to fill the void because people are not going to stop watching stuff. So something is going to fill that void.
It created a lot of
not one.
It created a lot of good memes and stuff. I don't know how.
Carol Baskin.
How I'm ever going to financially recover from this.
Yeah, there's a lot of those.
Well, I know we didn't get into a lot of the other news, but I think that's probably good enough for an episode.
Oh yeah,
and I'm glad we got to relive that saga together that we have lived all along. And, this has been a very heavy podcast about Chapek and Iger. We'll continue to see how it goes forward. John, just remember all the things that that Chapek didn't do right. And tomorrow, whenever you salute him when you get out of bed.
Right.
And in Iger, we trust. I will say personally, like I said, I bought more Disney shares today. I bought more Disney shares today. So I'm ready to go. And I'm down something like what I sent y'all a screenshot. I'm down like 20% or something.
You're down a pretty good bit.
Keep going. Throw it in.
Yeah. I'm going to wait till it's down to like 50 and then I'm going to buy.
I don't think it'll go that low.
Yeah.
It may not reach that, but it's going to reach.
On my Greenlight family cash card, I have the 3% cash back. Automatically invest all of my cash back into Disney every month, which you can do with the Greenlight family cash card. Official sponsor.
Yeah, right. I do agree that investing is a marathon, not a sprint. If people are going to truly be successful at it, but there are times when you have to cut something loose, right? So.
Well, that portfolio I sent to y'all, I've bought it in very small increments over the course of probably
I knew
2 years or something.
Yeah, I knew.
But we're like at an all-time low. So everything I've bought, except for what I bought today, is a loser right now. So
I saw what was it? I saw the video where Adam the Woo sold all of his for he came close to breaking even, is what he said. He lost a little bit.
Why wouldn't you just hang on to it? Because eventually it'll come back. I mean,
I'm looking at it as I'm getting it on a deal right now. I'm getting a discount because I think it's worth at least $100 a share.
Well, I actually sold mine a little while back, what I had, but I actually sold it for a profit. So, but the thing is, I think what most investors are waiting on is something tangible that's going to give them a reason to invest, right? I just don't see that right now.
Well, speaking of, just to wrap this whole thing up, in the coming weeks, we've got, the Destination D23. We'll see if anything comes out of Josh tomorrow's presentation or not. Mm-hmm. And then the Treasure was announced, which we didn't talk about yet.
Let's do that next week because that looks exciting.
Yeah. Yeah, that
Yeah.
treasure is
That was
a
some good
positive
news.
note.
Yeah, that was some
I
good
think,
news.
John, you're hosting next week, and you're our resident cruise line expert, so you got to do the treasure episode for us.
Yeah, you know how long it's been since I've been on a cruise now at this point?
Before
Been a-
COVID, right?
Oh, it was 2017 when I went on
Gotta
one.
get back on the high seas.
Yeah, let's all do a treasure cruise, traveling with the mouse treasure cruise.
Totally, because I'm excited about that.
I will say, based on what I've seen so far, I do feel similar to the last time they did the 2-ship release, which was a long time ago.
We should do a podcast cruise, see if any of our listeners want to join us.
Yeah.
Ah, right. Like we're gonna like buy out certain the ship.
Yeah,
Yeah.
of course.
Right.
Thinking
right.
like PW used to be.
Yeah.
Can't talk about that guy.
From some of the
All
things we've heard, I think it's still owed.
Yeah,
So,
right. It's on like Amex somewhere.
Anyways, I think that's enough. If you want to continue to interact with us before you get to our next show, and if you want to give us any tips about what to discuss about the treasure, where would you do that?
well, there's always Facebook, the artist formerly known as Twitter, and Instagram, and then there is also YouTube, which we have, and that was at TWTM Podcast, by the way. And then there's also YouTube, which we have a channel which has a few videos on it. And where else can we find that, Adam?
Our website, travelingwiththemouse.com. You can find links to that and more. We also have an email address, podcast@travelingwiththemouse.com. We have a travel agent friend as well. Links to that is on our website, travelingwiththemouse.com.
So, for John and Adam, this is Jason. This has been Traveling with the Mouse, and we hope you'll join us on your next trip. Don't forget, we also have TikTok where John does Chapek themed dances as well.
Ah, yes, of course.
Yes.
I hope no one actually goes to look for that.